Good evening and welcome to another episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to the Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we'll not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. And with regards to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed, 1-869-469-1616 and 1700. Here's a suggestion. You get a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you get in the show, you take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow this live stream of this program, the video stream, on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel, Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Thank you all again. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I also want to say a special good evening to those who are listening and viewing this widely viewed and listened program. And of course, we are here every Tuesday night with something that we feel could edify you and, of course, edify us also. Well, I just want to say a special good evening to Ingrid Brown there in Hickmans. She celebrated a birthday yesterday, and she would have said to me that she listened every Tuesday night. She is an elderly person, so Ingrid, I want to say a special good evening to you, and I hope you had a wonderful time yesterday on your birthday. Webbo, I must thank you once again for inviting me to this widely listened program, a program, of course, that you would have dubbed, and not just you would have dubbed, but the facts would bear it out that it's a program that bear results, Webbo. Thank you once again, and I'm sure I'm looking forward for a wonderful and fruitful discussion this evening.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis, and those who widely listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin, and also via YouTube and Facebook. Webbo, tonight, of course, is a sad period in our history, and I listened to a clip from a government advisor telling some of those who are engaged in the misbehavior regarding the killing of the peers to buy a ticket and leave the island. In my view, that is bad advice. My recommendation is to say to these people, find some place in a church, find some higher power, instead of telling them to leave the island without being caught or being found. Ask them to go to church, change their lives, and as a result, I think we would have a better community. Sadly, 3 murders within such a short space of time is unacceptable. And I would say that the former Prime Minister, Dr. Harris, who had, I guess, a program in effect to actually harness this menace with reference to the peace program. That program was working, in a sense, working to a certain degree, to the extent where we had a reduction in the number of murders within St. Kitts and Nevis. At the same time, Dr. Harris wasn't able to continue as the Prime Minister, and consequently the peace program has been changed, in my view, dramatically, to the extent where we are now having an escalation in the myriad of crimes, or those who are killing their peers. Young men, I applaud you, I urge you, and I hope through my utterances you will be persuaded to forego that activity, and therefore I am inviting you to church, any church. Find yourself in a church where, not only on Sunday, but whenever the opportunity avails itself, to pray to God, to give you a certain sense of value with reference to love, tolerance, adherence to the laws we have on the books, and ultimately to do away with that activity, because it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. Hence, again, I ask you to find yourself into a church, any church, and pray to the Master. He has helped all of us, because there's a thin line between being good or being bad. And badness is out of style. So if you are engaged in that kind of activity, and you get on your knees and you pray to your Master, He will answer. Maybe not in your time of acceptance, but He will, if you fervently believe. I do not know what your beliefs system might be, to the degree of wanting to turn around. Saul was going down the road of Damascus to persecute God's people, and God sure asked him to turn around. He turned around, and Saul became one of Jesus' disciples, one of the greatest disciples among the 12. And I'm saying to you, badness is out of style. So at this particular juncture, in our own development and history, please adhere to the notion of love, peace, forgiveness, and ultimately change your lives. 3 murders within the space of 3 days? Unacceptable. So again, find yourself in a church, wherever you will be able to find God, which He is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. So wherever you are, pray to your God, and He will actually send or give you a different state of mind, and He will cause you to turn around, take an about turn. So I applaud you. I beseech you to find yourself in a church, or wherever you are, pray to your God, and He will bring deliverance to you and your soul. Webbo. Roger.
Yeah, well, I am saddened by the recent murders that took place on the island of St. Kitts in the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. I believe it was just last week, Tuesday, when I spoke to the increase, not knowing that, it would have increased so drastically. But remember, what I want to say to our youngsters is that they must look within themselves. They must do some introspection. How do I want to live my life? Do I want to live my life looking over my shoulder every minute of the day? Do I want to live in fear? Can I have a successful and fruitful life? And if I can, how can I? I want to say to the youngsters that you can only have a fruitful and successful life if you turn away from gang violence. Gang violence would take you nowhere. You have to try to engage yourselves wholesomely in social activities, sporting events. There are so many things to do now. You can play basketball, football. You can do track and field. I mean, there are so many things. You can go by a friend's house. You can look at the sporting events. You can chat. You can talk. But you must leave out the violence. It would get us nowhere. I think it was probably a month or two ago when our Prime Minister said that a particular business house wanted to bring in employees or persons from outside St. Kitts and Nevis to be in their employ. I am saying this to say that suggests to me that we have work in our federation. I also listened parts of our premier press conference earlier today, and he would have said to the effect that jobs are going a begging in Nevis, and those who do not have a job might be those who do not want a job, or they do not want the job that might be available. You may ask why I'm saying this, but I'm saying this to say that we can be engaged in work. We can get work to keep ourselves occupied. When we do not occupy ourselves, the devil finds things to do with idle hands. So I want to encourage you, young man. I want to encourage you, young woman. I want to encourage you, parents. I want to encourage you, members of society. Because when you look at it, we are all related somehow, some shape, some form. The persons who are committing these crimes, they must be related to someone. Their hearts are not made of stone. They must, as humans, at some point in time, confide in someone or ask someone for some sort of advice. And I am saying to us, when we are asked for advice from these persons, let's give them good advice. Let's give them sound advice. Because if we don't, sadly, a time may come when things get so much out of hand that we might just be one of the stats. So I want to say to us, let us be smart. Let us build our nation. Let us hold hands in hand and let us move forward and upward. This is no time for us to backpedal. This is a time that when we look, we can see hope on the horizon. But when we see hope, what must we do? What should we do? We should look at that beacon of light and hope and relish it and build on it for generations to come. I want to say, Webbo, again, that it is sad. Loved ones, parents, relatives are grieving. And you know, Webbo, sometimes sadly, persons who engage in such activities, I just wonder if they put a value on their lives. Sometimes they are so ignorant and pig-headed that it seems as if that they don't care if they live or die. But I want to say to you, young man, I want to say to you, young lady, even if you don't put a value on your life, there are persons out there who value you, who love you, and who want the best for you. Think about your mother. Think about your dad. The pain that they would go through.
Fifi, let me just interrupt your section. I'm going to come back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Webbo and the panel. I know we're getting ready for a Culturama, the 50th, but Government Road, I don't know when last you passed down there. It's very deplorable with all the overgrown bushes and shrubs. Can't see my neighbors, can't see the government house or anything. I don't know if there's something that will be done with the cleanup of government road. I mean, it's a main access road. We have a lot of expatriates coming in for cultural and so. And to have them see this, it's not. It's the most traveled road also. The former DGG is on the road, you know. It's not a sight to behold. Hello?
Yeah, we're listening, so, yeah.
Yes, so I don't know if any parties concerned can look into it to get it cleaned. I would appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I could ask you a question? Hello?
Hello?
I could ask you a question?
Yes, that's my statement.
Right. So I was, as you explained the areas that are unsightly, and you said government road?
Government road.
And you're talking about maybe the sides of the roads or something? Because the government road that I know don't have a lot of space between the road and person's properties.
It's between the Library Foundation House and this road that goes across by the federal office on the left-hand side, right-hand side going up, left-hand side coming down. That area there, very overgrown.
Okay, so that will be a private property, you think?
Yes, but isn't there something on the book that can force them to clean it, or the government cleans it and build them or something?
I'm just checking, just trying to see, you know, like where you were speaking about. So
yes, because most people use the crossing there to go to the activities and the festivities at the cultural complex and the cultural village, and you know, anything can happen there. I was listening to you guys talk about the crime rate and so, and anybody can be in there and trying to jump out at you and that kind of stuff.
Okay, I just trying to, you know, get, like I said, you know, the exact place you were talking about. I got you.
Okay then.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Fifi, finish up that point, and if you can give me a minute, I wanted to mention something early, you know, and so I'll do that, and then we can get back on track.
Okay, thank you, Webbo. I just want to say, just to wrap up, Webbo, that to those who may not have a value on their life, if they were to die, especially by the gun, their parents would be wailing and crying. So at least think, if you're not thinking about yourself, at least think about your parents. And that's how I'll wrap it up, Webbo, on that portion. Thank you.
Okay, so what I wanted to do, first of all, I wanted to say good evening to Ted Hobson. So Ted, hello. I'm doing this thing, Edric, because I'm finding out these days that when you just say hello to folks without any long conversation, it works. So Ted, hello. And also, I just wanted to mention that you know, Mama Lou, she was interred today, and she's she fits in the category of persons who, I think, this is just my own view, that had served the community well, all across the islands. You know, no big speech and stuff like that and so on, but she served this country well. And I believe if we used to do polls, and we did polls with that regard, you'll find that I'll be vindicated in terms of that statement. And so in terms of the family, we would like to let you know how much we appreciate what Mama Lou had done, you know, for the service to the country. And to me, that is what the kind of thing that the Bible speaks about in serving your people, right? So I just want to say to the family that we're with you. She supported us well here at Vaughan Radio, all of us, you know, the entire institution. And also, I learned of that Adrian Lamb, on St. Kitts has also passed away. A lot of people would not know this, but he was one of the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis who support us immensely, not just with talk, when we got on the air and all through the operations and stuff like that. And people like those, I really admire those people who do a lot of stuff in the community because of their philosophy of life without making a whole lot of noise about it. So I just wanted to also say to the family and to the rest of the nation, I also feel that he had done good service to us as a people as well. Most people who serve in that way are not worried whether or not people praise them up or not. Because in my view, my own simple meaning of service, the way I describe service, is that in the act of performing it, you get your reward. So that as you do something for someone, and even if they can't speak to thank you for it, you will see some sort of smile or some radiance will come out from them to show how much they appreciate. And you can't help, that will also bring out the radiance in you. And those persons who I really admire, and this is a light moment, if I had the authority, I'll make a law that you honor those kind of people. Those to me are national heroes. So I just wanted to say that. Let me check my desk to see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I notice Edric don't say so much that he checks it, his desk information comes to his desk now. So my desk is getting overloaded. Okay, I think those were the notes that I wanted to make. So I have something else I want to put on the table, but I'll let you guys continue, and then later on I'll bring that on.
I would say that I have known of Adrian Lam for quite some time, and he had been one of the players within our community, St. Kitts Nevis, with reference to the hotel business. He has served in many capacities in terms of director or maybe of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Rotary. But if anybody has any correction with those two national agencies, international agencies, you can call and correct me. But like I've said, he has served in the hotel industry for quite some time, and he had, I think, established a very fruitful business in the rural area of St. Kitts. But at the same time, he actually operated like a thread through many needles in the various areas of the commercial aspect. Maybe in other private entities, but he walked softly and carried a big stick to the extent where he left his mark on the sands of St. Kitts Nevis as a pioneer in the hotel industry before the Marriott and before the Four Seasons and so on. I believe at one point I may have attended a wedding in the area where he had his business operation. Now, Mama Lou, I attended the funeral this afternoon, and she, of course, has done human service. She, based on what was said, she always loved cricket, and she, of course, spent a lot of time at Grove Park, ETW Park, currently the name, and as a result, she served the Anglican Church. Charlestown Anglican Church, and of course the other Anglican churches would have benefited from some of her voluntary work, and based on how she conducted herself, she touched so many lives, and God was always with her, simply because she was a good person. And this is what we're asking those people who are attempting to get involved in deviant behavior to be a Mama Lou and to make your contribution to your community, to your family, to your fellow man, to the extent where you would be always remembered as one who has contributed immensely for the betterment and upliftment and the forward movement of our upward and forward mobility as a community. She, of course, lived a ripe old age of 95. When I heard that she, in fact, was 95, I was astounded, because she never looked that age. But it was said by the eulogizer, who, he read the eulogy, and somebody in the eulogy, it came out, well, it was a light moment, because somebody believed that Willie was her brother based on his appearance. But when they compare Mama Lou with Willie Dore as a falsehood regarding him being Mama Lou's brother, they said Mama Lou looked so young and Zumbai looked so old. So the church had a laughter about that, because really, based on the age limit or age factor, Zumbai was not her brother. Zumbai was her son. But of course, they just wanted to bring a little laughter to the congregants who were present. Well, as it was said, Harlem Shelter was the home for quite a number of young people, or more so young men, who were guided by the teachings not only of the church, which Mama Lou was an integral part of, but also her dissertation, her guidance, her recommendations to those who were present at Harlem Shelter, which started back in the 70s, and they were able to compare that. If you were to check the history of places like the Harlem Shelter, no entity is existing from that era currently. No entity is existing from that era when Harlem Shelter was established. But at the same time, she was the stalwart, the guiding light of her family. Jeffrey Dora, whom I knew for quite some time in St. Croix, Willie Dora, which was Zumbai Dugai, because we all lived in went to St. Croix at about the same time, and we all communicated. The person who eulogized Mama Lou was the great Bahola, which we have had on our program at some point in time, recent time. At the same time, he said during the eulogy that people from all walks of life were at the Harlem Shelter from its inception. And as a result, many people learned from the gathering, because you had so many people within that Harlem Shelter community who were educated to the point where knowledge, it was known as the Harlem University, based on what was said in the eulogy. But I could understand why, because Jeffrey and Willie and I had many educational sessions when we debated, not on a nice forum, but at the same time we debated when we met regarding academics and the whole 9 yard, cricket. But seemingly Mama Lou produced two sons who were avid sportsmen to the degree where they did everything at the highest level, simply because of the upbringing from Mama Lou. It was really a nice funeral. And another funeral that occurred on Friday was that of Sean, the pilot.
Henville.
Sean Henville. And I was elated to see so many people of the aviation community, fraternity, that came from different, I would say, different parts of the United States, as the case might be, different parts of the Caribbean, because he flew for many airlines, seemingly. Liat, DHL, FedEx, Nevis Express, and as a result, he too left his mark indelibly on the sands of time. So, my condolences go out to those two who have gone to the great beyond, and they will be sorely missed simply because of the contribution they have made, not only to their families but to the wider community of St. Kitts Nevis, the region, and indeed the world.
Yes, Webbo, I was fortunate enough to, attend the funeral of Mama Lou this afternoon. I wasn't able to be there until the end though, but nonetheless I'm really happy. I met Mama Lou, a wonderful lady, must have been back in the very early 90s, and I met her through her predeceased sister, Cynthia Challenger. Wonderful lady she was too. And I think that if we are to look for a role model, towards a role model, Mama Lou name must be right up top. So I want to say condolences to the family, and continue to be strong. Let her memories be some sort of comfort to you. Adrian Lamb, I think I met him some years ago. I think he was involved in the Toucan ban in St. Kitts. I think he was also involved in music festival, carnival, and of course Culturama in some aspect. So they, no doubt, both him and Mamalu, and of course Sean, who I knew for many years. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend his funeral, but I also express condolences to his wife and the entire family. I think he too was a wonderful person, a wonderful human being. And it is said, well, we know for a fact, that we are here just to occupy until such time. And we never know when that time would come. So we just have to live our lives the best way that we can. Webbo, I would have spoken to a few farmers, and they are complaining, Webbo, about the monkeys, destroying their farm. I don't know what could be done, in terms of, I think this is a topic that we would have spoken about, on numerous occasions. But I think that it's important for us to continue this discussion in terms of how can we reduce the monkey population so that farmers could be able to produce in a meaningful way. I don't know if Stalin want to help me out here with his experience, but I think that's something we have to find a way. I don't know. Years ago, when animals used to come in the land, used to prepare a bucket with some water and add some things to it, so when they drink it, they wouldn't go too far. I am not sure if we can do that for monkeys. I know a long time ago we used to make what we call scarecrow, and we used to get the monkey skin and put it up on the fence and stuff like that. So I don't know if these things work, because even the dogs now, the monkeys seem as if they would measure the train or the rope, whatever, the leash, whatever the dog is tied on, and they would, when they recognize that the dog cannot go anymore, they just do what they have to do. They jump and they do what they have to do. I know some farmers have electric fence, but the same thing, the monkeys, like, they send one to kind of test it out, and in so doing, sometimes they short out the wires. I don't know. I know persons who are going around shooting monkeys. It appears as if that has slowed down for, I don't know the reason, but I think that we as a country need to look at it. The agriculture department need to look at it and see what can be done. Stanley?
Well, I, in the past, saw a trap that was made, and the trap was filled with a certain amount of, well, not filled, but monkeys like banana, and banana was put in the trap. fixed with a certain degree of poison. But I'm not even certain if that program is still ongoing, spearheaded by the Department of Agriculture. But at the same time, I saw a trap which was engineered by the Department of Agriculture. And the trap was large enough for several monkeys to have a party inside the trap. And I saw in the trap at one point about 3 monkeys, but this has been years ago. I think if that program was effective, it should be again started and extended and brought to better or another elevated plateau to in fact.
Let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening. Just a intervention. Are you all aware of the passing of Alfonso Bridgewater?
Yes,
Hello?
we are. Yes, we are. And it's glad to hear your voice.
He was in charge of the solid waste, the Olympics. He was the president for 30 years or whatever. I don't know if he did it before, but I didn't hear anybody mention him. All right then.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that Mr. Bridgewater too, Webbo, I think that he is, I have to use the present tense, because to me he go on, unsung hero, I believe. I know that he was in charge of the local Olympic committee for a number of years. How much I'm not sure. And I'm a youngster, I would have been hearing about him until some years ago. I think that I was fortunate to be under the same roof as him. Might have been at a workshop or something some years ago. So I was fortunate enough to meet him. So I want to say condolences to his family also. I think that based on what I heard of him and what I know of him, I think that he did human service for the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis.
Well, my condolences go out to Alfonso Bridgewater. I didn't know him personally, or maybe, just maybe, I might have ran into him some point in time. At the same time, based on the frequency and at the level within our federation where his name was mentioned, he in fact has contributed quite significantly to the upward and forward movement with reference to our community. And sadly, the good people are going. The good people are going. And some of these scoundrels are existing. Anyway, I think it would be nice for somebody to call in and tell us about that agricultural program regarding the trap with the monkeys, and see if we could get an understanding as to what happened to the program, and if it could be reignited or reinitiated, restarted, and ultimately be carried on to the extent where we bring a certain amount of help to the current farmers, not only in Nevis but also in St. Kitts. Now, based on the scarecrow that you mentioned, do you know as to whether or not it worked?
It worked, but it ain't working anymore, Stanley. The monkeys
Well,
are
monkeys
getting
are smart.
smart. Yes.
Monkeys are smart. And in that regard, they in fact would test whatever is there to in fact give them a little playing room. But you know something? I looked at the program, and if you were to see the elephant and their plight in Sri Lanka.
Take just a minute. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are.
I think it was the last week I was listening to Mr. Branty, Premier Branty, when one of the young men who does the shooting called in to explain their dilemma. He indicated that the very high cost of the bullets for the gun for the monkey, the price is high, he said, about 9,000 US, something like that. And that by the time they bring them into customs, the duty on them is so high. So he was trying to seek to get some incentive, if the government could grant them something like that. So that to me is Mr. Thing. What about the shooting? The young man said they want to do it. Premier Brad had some reservation in terms of the safety and so, but he assured them that it was safe. But they said they want to go back and they want to continue, but they need some thing from the duties, because by the time they bring them in, the duties are almost as much as the cost of the bullets. So if you know the people, you could investigate, but he did call in. Somebody called in.
Well, I'm not sure if the cost of the bullet is the factor.
I don't know, because I'm on the ear can't say make it too much noise, I can't hear.
The fact that that program seemingly worked, but if it is controlled by the government in terms of the shooting, the actual control of the monkey population, the government should see the viability of or the effectiveness of the program, and as a result continue it. If the bullet and duty cost are so exorbitant, then the government has to be able to figure out as to the viability of the program with reference to individual people who bring the bullets in and having to pay the duty. But somewhere along the line, I am not sure if we got all the information, because guns and bullets are of high value to some of these people who are involved in deviant behavior. As a result, maybe that is the angle from which the program is not being promulgated or advanced. If for whatever reason the government doesn't see the effectiveness of the program, they should come forward and state categorically exactly what the problem is. But if the program is geared toward multiple multiple, what we call scattered shots coming out of that firearm. It should be effective with regard to controlling the monkey population, because you drive up the back road of Four Seasons and you'd see a multitude, a whole family. Sometimes you got 10 monkeys, and if you were to use a scatter shot scenario, you should be able to catch a lot of those monkeys at the same time. But I understood that Canada had some reservations with reference to the shooting of monkeys. Now, a program, like I said, with the banana in the trap, where the monkey would have a party inside the trap, and by the time they get out of the trap, they got more bellyache coming from the poison that was put into the bananas. And we are now growing, at the time we didn't have so many people growing bananas. At the same time, in terms of the agricultural approach regarding bananas, we have a multitude of farms right now with bananas. So it should be a viable entity, a successful program with regard to this big monkey trap.
Stanley, there was a program that I think the government, the Ministry and Department of Agriculture was spearheading in terms of when persons go out and shoot monkeys, I think they would bring back the tails of the monkeys to the Department of Agriculture, and they in turn would get an amount of monies for a tail. How much? I'm not certain. I am not sure if that is still ongoing or that has ceased. I am not sure. But that was, I suspect, in a way that the government was saying, hey, if you have to pay monies to bring in your ammo, then here is a way that can help to
Defray.
Thanks for the word, to defray the costs. And as I say, I'm not sure if that is still ongoing. Yes or not? Yes or no? But that I think if it is not ongoing, maybe they should probably look to revisit it and see what happens.
That is a program that has been fashioned after rat tail. Long time ago we knew that rat tail was of a certain value.
Yes, 2 pence.
Whatever the amount was. Mongoose tails were also part of the program, because we, based on what we learned in the early primary school, West Indian Reader, the mongoose were brought in
Kill the snake.
to take care of the snakes.
Yes.
But then they became a nuisance for us as the population grew at the time. But for whatever reason, the monkey tails should be of some value, and that is one way that the government could make a determination or evaluation as to how effective the program is, because the monkey population is quite alarming because of its expansion. They are breeding faster than human beings. I would imagine that at this particular juncture we might have more monkeys in Nevis than human beings. They were kept in abeyance for quite some time in the higher elevation
In the hills.
in the hills, but now I could tell you
Can see them in Charlestown.
they're all over,
Mm-hmm.
but we can tolerate them because they're not as harmful as an elephant.
But they're destructive.
Well, to a degree. But would you believe that I saw this program just the other night on television, and the elephant, which is a huge animal, they might be the largest mammal on Earth right now, existing on Earth. That with the rhinoceros but the elephant. The people of Sri Lanka, they know how to, by night, stay to watch to see where the elephants are coming from, and to, in fact, chase them away. Sometimes the elephants are so smart that they no longer run from the human being. They charge, and people get killed. And they're now operating in herds, big herds. And based on their size, they got electric fence. I do not know how they get through these electric fence, but they walk through as if nothing is there.
They're tough.
Yeah. So, but we think we have a real problem, and I feel aggrieved for the people of Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka. That's, I think, where the problem with the elephants are. Elephants on the highway.
Webbo, it slipped me to say at the top of the program and to say happy St. George's Day to all persons living and those who are not living but who are from St. George's. Today is the 23rd and it's St. George's Day. That's a day that is normally put aside, that we celebrate St. George's Day. I think this morning there was supposed to be what do you call it? At the Carmel, it's supposed to be trying to get the correct term. But anyway, at the Carmel, I think at 10 a.m. this morning, they were supposed to be highlighting all of the centenarians from the parish of St. George's, Gingerland. And of course, in celebration of St. George's Day, on the 27th, that's this weekend at the Zion playing field, they're going to have a big cricket match, Easterns versus the Bushwhacker team. The Eastern team is a team from the Zion area, and the Bushwhacker team is a team from the Rollins area. So we want to invite all and sundry to come across to the Zion play field on the 27th, that is 27th of this month. And once again, happy St. George's Day to all Gingerlanders, whether you're living in Gingerland at the moment or you are from Gingerland and not living in Gingerland. Happy St. George's Day.
At our church, St. George's Anglican Church, which I attend very frequently. The patron saint is St. George. So I do not know how that is celebrated in the church as well as in the community. We have to do some research as to whether or not what you're saying is relevant to the church doctrine as the patron saint of St. George. St. George, who is the patron saint of the Anglican Church. How does that fit into St. George's Day?
I think it's all interlinked.
Okay. Well, we are at a crossroads, and I have to bring back my last statement on the show last week regarding Israel and Iran. And a caller called in and labeled me being bloodthirsty. But I said that Israel, who has done a very terrible job of going after Hamas with reference to the people, 34,000 people, women, children, and the larger community of Gaza have been killed. And there is no excuse for Israel to have taken that kind of attitude in terms of slaughtering so many Palestinians, women and children. The payback for what happened on October 7th in terms of proportional disaster on both sides, the number of Palestinians in Gaza who have lost their lives is unconscionable, in my view. And Israel has to be held to account, and answer for possible war crimes. But at the same time, we have to understand the context in which that occurred, simply because Israel and Saudi Arabia, who has been an enemy of Iran for a long time, Israel and Saudi Arabia were getting together to bring about a system that would attempt to bring into sharp existence the whole of the Middle East. And Iran saw that possibility, and consequently they decided it's not going to happen, and as a result they made sure that they gave Hamas advice as to the current state of Israel regarding military preparedness, and they were advised to strike Israel, and that's why the altercation came about on October 7th. And Israel recognized that it has this firepower, all this firepower, being supported by the United States of America with its firepower Israel knew that they've got this massive amount of firepower, and they went after Hamas. But in their going after Hamas, 34,000 Gazans, women and children, elderly, women, men and children were killed. So proportionally, it was a one-sided thing, simply because Israel knows of its firepower and was hoping, relying on that firepower as a deterrent to Hamas. Hamas decided that they're going to figure out a way to go after Israel, and therefore they were able to have these little flying machines, and they were able to break the cycle of security in Israel. The killing of the people on October 7th, the Jews, or you want to call them Israelis, that was really an unconscionable episode. But again, Israel was relying on its firepower that Hamas would never attack Israel in that way. But they were given information from Iran, and consequently, Iran decided that the Houthi rebels, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas in Gaza, they all came at Israel, and therefore that information that Iran supplied them with arms, ammunition, guidance, communication, intelligence report, and the whole 9 yards, gave the Gazans, Palestinians, the information and the ammunition to go after Israel, because they have figured out Israel was weakened by, maybe it's just the figment of the imagination, but then based on the information that was given to those organizations, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi rebels, the Iranians just wanted to stir up trouble. Israel recognized that there had been a visit into Syria by a certain level of military personnel, and Israel struck with a drone and killed maybe 7 of them, high-level Iranians, and therefore Iran decided that it's going to strike Israel. China brought Iran and Saudi Arabia together. But based on the complexity of the Middle East, based on the security or the lack thereof, Iran decided, I'm going to strike Israel for striking my consulate in Syria. And therefore, they struck based on the Allied forces that neutralized all the drones and all the rockets that were fired at Israel. Israel had an obligation to fire back, to hit back. Fortunately, they were controlled by United States, and the United States told them, we will defend you if you're attacked, but we're not going to go on any offensive operation with you if you decide to go after Iran. But Israel had to fight back, had to fire back, hit back, and therefore to remain a dominant force, to be respected in the Middle East, supported by the firepower of the United States and the Allies. And based on that scenario, Israel couldn't sit idly by and see on Saturday night, Saturday morning early, all that firepower coming from Iran and don't answer back. So based on that, as I said, the complexity of the Middle East must be understood by some people. And don't call me bloodthirsty, because I see and know the workings of the parties in that same region. They want the United States out of that region, but it's not going to be easy to get the United States out of that region. The Houthi rebels begin to attack ships in international waters. Britain and France and other allied forces decided to attempt to keep the waterway free of these rockets, drones, as the case might be, coming from the Houthi rebels. And therefore, you cannot give up your firepower by fear or because of fear. And therefore, Israel had to fire back at Iran. 99% of the drones and missiles that were fired at Israel were neutralized. And because of the neutralization of the firepower coming from Iran, the United States told Israel, you must calculate this as a win. You had no one killed with a barrage of firepower coming from Iran. And therefore keep quiet. Israel couldn't keep quiet. She had to fire back. So please don't call me bloodthirsty. Israel fired back with a calculated response, because Israel could have gone after Iran with a lot of firepower, but not sure as to whether or not the United States and the Allied forces would come to its aid. But Israel could have practically leveled Iran with all its firepower. But you have to get resupplied with your firepower after you would have exhausted so much firepower on Iran. Because Iran is no small walk or easy walk over. It's a big country, Persia. And consequently, Israel had to calculate the risk of taking on Iran for the barrage over 300 plus drones and missiles, which were neutralized by the Allied forces. Hence, Israel had to calculate its response, and therefore it fired back. So please don't call me a bloodthirsty person, but based on the aftermath of Israel firing back, Israel calculated, since the United States not going to help me on the offense, I must calculate my response. And therefore, they made a calculated response, and consequently, they both called that a draw. The firepower of Iran on Saturday and the firepower of Israel to Iran. One person might have gotten killed in Iran. But make no mistake, the ultimate goal is for space, whether air, water, land, or whatever. Israel has to remain the dominant Allied force in the region, and hence it took on Iran with a calculated end. And therefore they must also call that a win. You ever heard of the story of Goliath and Samson? The story went this way. Goliath and Samson decided that they were going to fight. So Goliath went to Samson's house, and when he got there, Samson was asleep. So he told Samson's wife to wake him, tell him that Goliath is here to fight him. So she said, no, I can't wake him. You know what I got to do to wake him? I have to beat him in his chest with a sledge. And Samson, Goliath said, if you got to beat your husband in his chest with a sledge, what is he going to do with poor me? The moral of the story is that if you got two people with a lot of firepower, they become fearful of each other and they will never fight. Unfortunately, it's not the same with Iran and Israel. Or both has firepower enough to neutralize each other. They were both neutralized, and eventually, or consequently, they have called it a truce, a draw.
Yes, Stanley, I think that you would have explained to us why you are not supposed to be referred to as bloodthirsty. But I just want to kind of a segue, so to speak. I was on the ABS webpage, that's the Antigua Barbuda Broadcasting Service webpage, earlier this afternoon, and I read that 2 E-145 jets would have arrived in Antigua earlier, and they are going to be part of the fleet for the LEAT 2020 airline. And I think that I also read that 5 more jets would be joining the fleet in short order. So I think that's it's a good. The inter-regional travel, I think, is going to benefit from that. I am hopeful that with the introduction of the new LEAT, so to speak, 2020, I am hoping that the cost to travel within the region would reduce. Do you know that it is cheaper to travel from St. Kitts to New York than to travel to some Caribbean countries, or to most Caribbean countries? And that is why maybe we as a Caribbean people are not really enjoying the Caribbean as we ought to. If it costs us $400, I was online sometime recently, and I recognize, I think it would have been in early June, to travel from RLB to JFK in New York. A round trip costs $353 US dollars. That's less than 1,000 EC dollars round trip. When you're traveling maybe to Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica, most times you're traveling to Jamaica, you have to go up. You have to go up to Miami and then come back down. That's a cost. To go to St. Lucia, any of the Windward Islands, it is upwards of 500 US dollars round trip. And depending on where you are going, it is not a direct flight. You have to probably overnight, maybe in Antigua or some other place. So I am hopeful that those who manage the new LEAT 2020, they would have by now worked out all the logistics as to how to connect the Caribbean. So we can go to St. Lucia, we can go to Dominica. Dominica is so pretty. Dominica is pretty. I'm fortunate to travel to all, or most if not all, of the Windward Islands. Even Guyana is pretty. Guyana is a really, really pretty country. You know, so I'm saying that we in the region, we have to find a way to connect so we can enjoy the region. Instead of every time we getting a vacation, we are going to the USA, Canada, and further land. I don't know, Stanley, if you would agree with me on that point, but I believe that it is time for us to enjoy the Caribbean.
Well, quite so. It is, of course, economies of scale.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to look at the history of the airline industry, you don't make money in an airline. You had BOAC, Braniff, Pan American, Eastern. Regionally, you had Premier, you had Caribbean. Based on what I just said, those are airlines that was part of the industry, historical industry, that went out of business. And some of these airlines are subsidy. Pan American was a subsidy of General Motors. General Motors considered Pan American as just a little finger. General Motors, GM, was a leading automobile company. Within the United States, of course, is not as vibrant as it used to be, but it is still a big company. GM, everybody wanted a General Motors car or a Ford or a Chrysler at the time, but like I said, Pan American was owned by GM, so they could have always pumped money into it even though they were losing, but ultimately they had to go out of business. So when you look at the airline industry, you don't make money out of the airlines. You make money when they are new, or once they become old, high maintenance. And as a consequence, if you can't sustain it, then you have to let it go. Liat lasted this long, simply because it was subsidized by the Caribbean government or the Leeward Island government, as the case might be. The history of it, I'm not 100% first on knowing the history of Liat.
Barbados and St. Vincent.
But at the same time, the safety was a priority. And because it was prioritized, the Caribbean government, whoever were the shareholders, found that more emphasis should be placed on safety than making money. And Liat 1974 served us well. I do not know if that was the name when I left Nevis to go to the Virgin Islands, but at the same time, Liat has not had any mishap regarding a down airline. So the emphasis was really placed on safety. And if you were to look at the value of safety, once you got an airline that didn't fly, and it's over waters especially, your chances of surviving is very, very, very low. As a result,
I thought you'd have had a better chance if it is over water than if it is over land and it might drop.
no. The thing is that if you're trained to fly, whenever you're over land, you must always be on the lookout for a flat or cleared area if you have an emergency. So, with that in mind, your chances are much better over land than over water. So, based on the applicability of safety, the priority of safety, that was the mantra with which or on which Liat existed. Now, because of the high cost of maintenance, Liat fell through, and they struggled over a period of time to keep it going. Ultimately, there's a need for regional travel. There's a cost associated with regional travel which is higher than that of the United States, that of Canada, that of Britain, per passenger mile. And consequently, you must not make a comparison, an unequal comparison with reference to the passenger mile.
Stanley, maybe
you should not. You should not.
Maybe you can help me here, Stanley. But let's use Antigua, for instance. If you are leaving from where the St. Kitts or Nevis to go to Antigua, depending on the airline, in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour the very most, you are in Antigua. Let's use St. Kitts. If you are leaving from St. Kitts to New York in 4 hours, depends on the airline, 3 hours, 50 plus minutes, you are in New York. So why should it be more expensive to sit on a plane for 20 minutes and it's less expensive for you to sit on a plane for 4 hours?
Again, based on the capacity of the carrier, one of those jets hold, let's say, an L-1011 or a 747. They hold maybe 600 passengers, 500 passengers, 400 passengers. The passenger mile,
Yes.
passenger mile in terms of the carrier is less, far less. And the even though the distance is much longer, once the plane reaches a certain altitude, because of the curvature of the earth, it reaches its destination much faster than flying low. At the higher altitude, they make up the mileage.
Okay. Well, what I would hope, though, is that the authority that are tasked in all the logistics and governing the layer 2020, that they could probably maybe speak to the banks. You could have miles, you can travel on your miles on, let's say, American airline, the Republic Bank, their credit card, MasterCard. You can gain miles and you can travel on your miles to whether New York, Miami, as the case may be, on American airline. So I am hoping that a similar plan can work out for late 2020, even if it is with our indigenous bank, the Bank of Nevis, or even the St. Kitts Nevis Angular National Bank. So we can gain miles and we can apply those miles to fly.
Well, the mileage is more or less an advertising gimmick.
How so?
Simply because it looks as if you, the passenger, or you, the customer, is getting more for a bigger bang for your buck than ordinarily. So this passenger mile for your travel is somewhat, it's a catch to entice you to travel on this particular airline as opposed to the other. But they all now got the same thing, and when seemingly times get hard, they tell you that you can travel on all the other airlines or any other airline, simply because, one, they want you to be locked in to that advertising gimmick.
Stanley,
We're getting a bigger bang for your buck.
I want to disagree with you. I want to disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. For me, I believe that the traveler cares about how much money is leaving his pocket, or how much money he can retain in his pocket. Now, when you have a credit card, you'd buy your groceries, you'd pay your bills, you would buy gasoline. Generally, you would shop. And you would shop for what you want. Not necessarily shopping to gain miles, but to shop for what you want. And when you shop for what you want, you actually gain in miles. And those miles would allow you to retain monies in a pocket, because those miles would now be applicable to whatever airline that they have the agreement with. So I am going to disagree with you here. The traveler, I think it's going to be easier on the traveler's pocket. Hence the reason I am suggesting that late 2020 can follow suit, so to speak, as the American Airlines and the mileage plan. And I think if that were to happen, you would find more persons traveling within the region. Because I'm telling you, Stanley, as I stated earlier, the Caribbean is a beautiful place. It is very beautiful. And for far too long, we have this notion that when we are having a vacation, that we have to go to America. And what has added to that is the cost of interregional travel. And if that could be lowered, and lowered significantly, I believe that we are going to be traveling within the region more. And we're going to understand and benefit from what we have in the region. So I am not going to agree with you in terms of what you refer to as what you refer to as gimmick.
Well, no, maybe for the want of a better terminology, I use that, but you got to do the cost-benefit analysis.
Of course.
And if Liat has to pay 10 cents for the aircraft from the manufacturer, when Boeing aircraft, Boeing makes the aircraft, it sells the aircraft to different airlines, L1011 or DC-10, 737 as the case might be, a Jumbo as the case might be, based on the fact that Liat might have to pay 10 cents for its aircraft when Boeing is producing aircraft for other airlines at 7 cents. So when Liat has to pay 10 cents and would have to compete or give away, because you're traveling at a lower cost when you actually get the perks, so to speak. You get travel, airline mileage based on accumulation.
I'm not sure if you're following me, Stanley.
I'm following you.
Okay.
Clearly. I'm trying to tell you, it is based on cost. Bottom line, when Liat has to dish out for the month 10 cents, and for the same aircraft,
The Boeing?
Boeing sells aircraft to China. It sells aircraft to Israel. It sells aircraft to the European countries.
But
And if that aircraft cost you, the buyer, 7 cents as opposed to 10 cents with Liat. Liat now has to find the money to pay for its aircraft and can't afford to give you free transportation.
Stanley, I think I got what you are trying to say. But what I am saying, Stanley, right? If let us take on Liat for a while. Let us use your example. Liat would have had to pay 10 cents. Now, to recover, and I'm not even going to say recover, I'm going to use it cautiously. To recover, quote unquote, they may have to sell for 15 cents. And that 15 cents is the benchmark. But you would find in there, Stanley, a guarantee by the government. All of these planes, Stanley, that comes here, and they are not, let me say 99% of these planes that come here, and they are not full, Stanley, you know that the government pays.
Yeah, we understand
But-
that.
and-
But somebody
but-
pays.
Right. But what I am saying, I am talking specifically to the miles. This would be an agreement with the particular bank that the particular airline comes into agreement with. What this does, Stanley, is that you'd find persons holding these particular cards, credit cards. Let me use myself as an example. We used to shop cash. We used to go to the gas station cash. Now I would have said to my wife, look, well, first I would have said to the bank, look, this is what I would like. I would like my wife to have a card. And whenever we shop, we use the card. Whether we buy gas, whatever we do, we try to use the card. Because what I'm saying, if we don't use the card, you would not gain miles. And if you don't use the card, you would be paying the same amount of money apart from the what I call it. You have to pay a fee, an annual fee, annual fee for the use of the card. And of course, we know that the interest is high, but it's also convenient. So if you have a card, you may not have $10,000, but you have a card, and you can go online and you can buy something. The Amazon and the other online suppliers, you can't buy with cash. You must use a credit card. So we know that we are paying for the convenience. But back to the point, I am saying, when this now is going to make or encourage us to use our card more, and when we use our card more, the bank, they get more interest, and no doubt the airline, once the miles are used within that particular airline, the airline is getting something from the bank.
Well, we understand all that, but you must understand the free enterprise system. The bank tells you, more you use your card, the better it is for us, the bank. the cost benefit analysis
Just like taking a loan. They would
must,
encourage you to come
must
take a
be
loan.
done so that by the end at a certain transaction, you have to make a determination as how much it truly cost you for using that card. But the bank wanted to use the card more so as to maximize their profit. And don't think you're getting away scot-free.
But of course not, still you pay for the convenience.
Yeah, well, somebody has to pay. So the bank has figured out a scheme where they encourage you to use the card, and every time you use the card, even the merchant has to pay for the customer.
For the convenience.
Yeah, we understand that. I understand that. Ultimately, it costs you less without the card.
That might be so, Stanley, but Stanley, we are living in the present. We are not living
I hear you.
20, 30 years ago when we would have been relying on our relatives from the Virgin Islands to send a barrel for us. We are going online and we are shopping. Look at America. How many big companies have gone out, who have gone to the dirt because of this online shopping? It's convenience.
Well,
and how do you shop online? You cannot shop online, Mr. Stanley,
I hear
using
you.
cash.
I hear you.
So you must pay for the convenience.
I hear you. I'm not having an argument on that. What I'm trying to tell you is that based on the cost benefit analysis, you have to pay for the use or the convenience of the card.
Thank you.
And if you decide and be wise enough to pay cash, you can't buy something from Amazon with cash. If you could, Amazon would be glad to take it. But the fact that it is so convenient, it's an electronic transfer, and based on that network of communication electronically, it is easier for everybody. But you, the user and holder of that card, it's costing you. If you were able to get Amazon to take the cash directly, but they're not going to take it.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to tell you, you are attempting to convince me that buying with the card. Well, let me ask you the question.
And gaining miles.
Let me ask you the question. Do you think it costs you less through the electronic transaction?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying,
Well, here-
I'm saying that it's convenient. Let us use another example, Mr. Stanley. Right? You have a, let me ask the question. Do you have a vehicle?
Yeah.
Good. I'm going to put you in Butlers, that you reside in Butlers Village. You have a vehicle, you drive into town every day to work. You drive into town, you're going back. You have a vehicle because it is convenient to you, right or wrong?
Quite so.
Right.
I
Okay, fine. Now, when you work out the cost at the end of the month, I can assure you that if you were to take a bus, it would be less on your pocket than if you own your own vehicle, drive it every day from Butlers to Charlestown. But yet you chose to have a vehicle because of convenience, and that is exactly what I'm saying.
Here, you either spend it on your vehicle, spend it wasting time waiting for a bus. It's going to cost you somehow.
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying, Mr. Stanley. If you have the card, it is convenient, so you must pay for it. It's the same thing, Stanley. If you want to build a house,
I'm not telling you.
if you want to build a house, Mr. Stanley, and you are poor as I am, I can't afford to go to the bank. I cannot afford to build a house that is going to cost me $500,000 from out of my pocket. Roger Fifield can't. I don't know if others can. So what I do, I go to the bank because it's convenient for me to get my house. And what the bank is going to do, they're going to charge me interest.
Well, we understand all that. That is a cost of doing business.
That is what with the same thing, Mr. Stanley, with the card.
I think you're misunderstanding me somewhere. I am saying to you, the electronic transaction that you're going to transact.
Mm-hmm. It's going to cost you.
Right.
Exactly. And it costs you why? Because of the convenience, Mr. Stanley.
Right, I understand that. But if you decide that you're going to get your thing done by cash, it costs you less.
But how can you order from Amazon with cash? Can you?
You can't.
Exactly my point. So you need a card because of convenience.
We understand that.
You are going to a wedding next week. Next week. You want to order your suit. There is none in Nevis like the one that you see on Amazon or Sheena, wherever they come from. But you want your suit because you want to go to that wedding. And you have your big roll in your pocket. You're going to get it. You can't get it.
You can't get it. I understand that. I understand that. Well, we agree. But I'm saying to you, but you are not understanding.
Well, time went fast, by.
Praise the Lord.
So who has the last word?
Well,
Cash is the last word.
I have to say this. No matter how you put it, if you actually spend by cash.
Cash is the last word.
Yes.
And he doesn't get it.
No.
Why you use cash.
Right.
I get it. Because if you follow the trial today, Trump told them pay in cash.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is Thought That Get Results. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On The Mark. Join Keith Scarborough at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening for Government at Work. It's the place to spend all of your evenings right here in the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought That Get Results. You all have a wonderful evening.